this is completely unacceptable kwa sababu it is a disease like was mentioned. This is very infectious, na ikienda mahali watu sasa, kama hivi ikiwa tunashindwa, isha inashindwa kutibu watu wakipata si wanakufa kama inzi. So even this idea, hata ile ingine ya kuuza data za watu bila kuwauliza za health and so on, ni kwa sababu kuna pesa hizo nyingi zinatoa, na hizo pesa zikitolewa hata hazijulikani zinatumika namna gani, haziwekwi kwa hospitali tena. So it is, it is completely kuonyesha kwamba hakuna caring for the people. Ni kama huku zamani katika America, they used to use black people wanawa introduce syphilis, alafu our treat kabisa, wanawa treat nusu, wao ni specimen, ndio waone how does syphilis interact with the body. Of course those people eventually wanakufa hizo experiments, na hiyo walikuwa wanafanya kabisa. So I think even as people go to court and so on, it is to indicate that he haiwezekani, and the government must be told that wacheni kucheza na life. Health is actually supposed to be a county matter. How many counties have the ability watu wakipatwa na Ebola kuwa treat? Hakuna. Kwa hivyo just kusema kwamba youth, this Gen Zs na millennials, endeleeni kufinya hii button ya kupata uongozi na kuwa different, so that there is real succession in terms of different politics from what we have had since 1963, those over 60 years. Because it's only you who, when you are intentional, when you are focused, when you are visionary, who can help to change our country. And Kenya should not be allowed to go down, because when it goes down, some of us who are old, sisi miaka yetu imekwenda, lakini nyinyi ndio injini yenu, na kwa hivyo sasa mpaka you take over your country, you need a genuine powerful youth movement, na hiyo movement inakuwa na within it movement ya hawa sasa watu wa rika wanatafuta uongozi viti, and then they are supported. And as far as I'm concerned, na nini kitu nimesema, any youth who is positive kiwa chama gani, we should support, particularly where they think they can only go to the politics through certain parties. Kuna zingine, of course, we don't like to hear about them a lot, but any youth who is positive should be supported. Na mkikutana basi katika county assembly, parliament, sasa you congregate and you do, you have a caucus like in Zambia, and you do your thing to help your country. So it is critical for us to be careful about what could happen 2026, 2020, end of 2026, 2027. Now, you see, the major problem is it's not the citizens per se who create the problem, but it is this almost, one can say, civil war among the political elite, because it's really a struggle who is going to control the system, and not necessarily to always deliver progress, prosperity, but in the first instance to deliver lagis to these operatives. So it is, how will I be able to employ, people that I want? How are we going to do procurement? How are we going? So that becomes like a very critical thing. And then the citizens are told that, it is the time of our tribe to be on top. And, maybe we'll look for another tribe that is a friend to us, and we come together, so that these citizens who sometimes are not very, they don't see those games, they buy into that thing. And so even this idea that we were saying, okay, do we have a party? Do we have a tribe? So one poses the question, is the tribe the party? Or is the party or the party is the tribe. And then even going beyond that, if you are a kingpin, you can determine most of the people who will be elected, and you just choose the candidates, and some of them, of course, will give you money for campaigns. And so, strictly speaking, therefore, all those people, they don't, strictly speaking, have a vote. The vote is the kingpin's vote, but we think that they have a vote because it's a nominal vote, because they vote according to how they are told to vote. And then later, this same elite, if the situation has not been consumed by violence like 2007, they make a coalition of tribes, even some who are fighting before in the election, they make, that kind of stuff. So I have been thinking, because the situation as it is developing, it's not going to be easy for the opposition to accept that they have been defeated. It is not going to be easy for the president to say, "I didn't have my two terms like all other presidential candidates before." So you have a stalemate, more or less, and we're almost tearing it a stalemate. So even one is wondering, is it, can somebody legitimately get 50% plus one? And if that is not possible and there's a runoff, number one and two, is anybody thinking of, given the circumstances, even when we don't get those people that we think will be transformative or whatever it is anybody thinking about the possibility of a government of national unity, not the usual quickie handshakes and stuff like that, which makes things not easy? So I think that's something I want to put on the table, maybe not for now, for later. And just to say what Daktari Dominic said about, did Raila on purpose take some guys to government to exit them? Because even it was said that they went on their own. It was not even like the party which took them there. So was that like some exit thing? And then to leave, two people led by his brother and Wanga, and then this other group of Sifuna and Babu, Ososi, and Orengo, and others being like regents, preparing the way, so to speak, for the takeover of the takeover of ODM. But I think it's not going to be easy for Mzee Oburu and those people who have been very central, in ODM, to cede it to Akena Sifuna alone. And Akena Sifuna might realize that even if they were to be told, "Come and lead, but we will be there together," they might say to themselves that that vehicle will not have the clarity for the young people to kind of pave the way for what they want to do for the future. So I think we're living in interesting times, and may God help us. And I yield.